on your computer, on your smartphone, on your Wi-Fi radio. We're localwebradio.fm.
You're listening to This Week in Real Estate with Lance and Connie Marples from Sutton West Coast Realty. Here's your host.
Hello, I am your host, Nick Jaworski, and I am here with Connie Marples from Sutton West Coast Realty. And today we'll be talking with Connie about things to consider when purchasing a strata property and what you need to know about condo living. Now, before Connie joins us, just a reminder that if you have questions or require any sort of assistance, you can reach Connie and her husband Lance by telephone at 604-538-8888 and on Facebook at facebook.com/marplesmarketing. Connie, it's great to be talking with you today.
You too, Nick.
All right, we're talking about strata property, and this is a great topic considering that there are just so many new condos and townhomes being developed in the White Rock, South Surrey area. So, you know me, Connie, I like to start at the beginning. Please explain to me, what is strata?
Well, it's basically a system that was set up so that people could jointly own properties. So when you purchase a strata unit, you own your individual space, and that's what goes on title, your condo number and unit, and then the rest of the building and common areas, which they're referred to, are commonly owned. So if there's, everything to do with the hallways, the exterior, then there's oftentimes they have recreational facilities, that kind of thing. That's all jointly owned.
So it's a great way to own property. If you maybe have less money to get involved, you're splitting the cost up of a larger building.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there's lots of different reasons why people do decide. Oftentimes it is first-time buyers for sure, but more often in this area, it's people that are downsizing. They may want to give up all their big yards, et cetera, because they're going to be traveling more. It's easy to lock up your condo and go. Somebody else mows the lawns, et cetera. So, yeah, there's lots of good reasons to buy. And lots of options out there for sure.
Okay, so now we're talking about strata. Now, what do we need to consider when going? I mean, buying property is always going to be a stressful decision. You got to weigh all the options. But this particularly, you're going with other people, and maybe there are things you don't have control of. So, what should you be aware of when you're going into this situation?
Yeah, it's funny because strata generally is less expensive, but it's actually a little more intricate in terms of purchasing because there are so many things to consider. You're right. The main things when you're writing an offer, you always do it subject to reviewing all the strata documentation because there's a lot of stuff you have to go through in order to know kind of what condition the building's in. So you look at their minutes, for instance, and they go back for 2 years. You'll get their monthly meetings, and it's a lot of stuff to go through, but it's so important. For instance, if there's a recurring theme that comes up of, say, noise complaints or leaking or any of those kinds of issues, that's where you're going to find them. You also review the financials, so it's good to know that they're putting money away in a contingency fund in case down the road any big expenses come up. You want to make sure that they're going to be able to cover them. Basically that they're managing well, and those are kind of the key things to look at.
It's funny, I wouldn't have thought that they have minutes, but you're clearly entering into a legally binding organization, right? Is that a right way of thinking about it?
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing is to know that because you're dealing with lots of different personalities and lots of individuals, there's oftentimes in strata developments, there's one or two people in the committee that may be, not the easiest to get along with, but you can, again, tell often from the minutes themselves if it's a well-managed building, if it's a friendly, easygoing situation you're coming into, or if it's like, ooh, I might like that spot, but I don't want to get involved with a lot of drama. So you should also get your realtor to kind of look around or ask around if they know other people that live in the building, because that's usually where you're going to get that information from too. So
right.
Yeah, lots of things to consider. But all in all, condo living is a great a great thing for, like I say, for a lot of people, single people, anybody really that doesn't want to have to deal with the yard and the additional expenses of running a home.
Now, and you might be covering this later, but I did want to ask, how do I, what's the process that I meet the owners of the condo? How does that go about?
Meaning the other people in the building? You don't usually meet them prior to moving in, for sure.
Oh, wow.
You need to sort of just get you mean once you're moved in?
No, I meant, you answered the question, yeah, like, I'm interested in this property. I didn't know if there was I've seen TV shows where there's a meet and greet situation.
Oh, I see. Yeah. No, generally not. You just decide based on the financials, the information you get from your realtor regarding sort of the history of the property. Mm-hmm. The other thing you need to be aware of is the maintenance fees, because sometimes those are quite high. So you think you're getting into an inexpensive property, and you can afford it in terms of your mortgage payment. But the maintenance fees can be, if there's a recreational facility with a pool, if that's something that's not important to you, you don't want to move into a development that has that, because you're certainly going to be paying for it.
Right.
So it also is important to look and see what else is included in the maintenance fees, because sometimes they seem high, but then it's, your gas, your water, your electrical, so you don't have any other expenses other than, say, your phone and cable. So it turns out that, it's not expensive. It actually, so all of those things are important.
It all works together. Now, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Connie Marples from Sutton West Coast Realty. And when we return, we'll continue our conversation on what to know when buying a strata property. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
More This Week in Real Estate after this. Are you dealing with a health issue you would love to resolve? Would you like to restore yourself to be healthier and more invigorated? The naturopathic doctors at Ocean Park Natural Therapies want you to know that you can be helped. There is no limit to what they treat, because they don't treat the conditions or the disease. They treat people, not diagnosis. For more information and to book your appointment, call 604-538-3017. That's 604-538-3017. And visit them online at www.oceanparkhealth.com.
Take control of your financial future with sound investing with Byron Stryloff, Senior Investment Advisor and Chartered Financial Planner with over 30 years of experience on the Business Channel on localwebradio.fm.
If you're struggling with a dental or oral health issue, be sure to catch the Healthy Smiles Oral Health Show with Dr. Norm Ickard on the Health Channel on localwebradio.fm.
It's time now for more This Week in Real Estate.
All right, we are back with Connie Marples, and we're talking about strata property. And Connie, we talked a little bit about it before the break, but what are the red flags that we should be aware of when entering into a strata situation?
Well, you really want to make sure that you go through the financials and the minutes very carefully, and make sure that there's no big expenditures coming up, because it doesn't happen so much it doesn't happen with the new buildings, but with any of the older buildings that you may be looking at, if they haven't replaced the roof, for instance, and you see that there's only $50,000 in the contingency fund, they're for sure going to be asking everybody to cough up at some point. And I've heard of people having to pay $30,000-$40,000 per unit. Yeah, so it can be a really, really big deal. So when you're buying new, obviously those things aren't an issue. And when I say new, it's sort of, even up to 10 years old, you're pretty safe. And 15 years old, you want to make sure that the buildings are rain screened, which isn't an issue anymore because that's the way that they're built now. But again, back in the 80s, that was most people remember that was a big ordeal. You'd go down the street in False Creek, for instance, in Vancouver, and every building was covered in big blue tents, and it was kind of apocalyptic. But
so that's been solved in the newer buildings.
Yeah, for sure. That has been solved. But those are things that you want to make sure in the financials that there's enough money covered. Absolutely.
Okay, now we've talked about the red flags. We talked about personalities of people. We've talked about, the contingency fund and bills, hidden fees, maintenance fees. But what are the upsides to living in a condo? There's got to be a lot of good things.
Yeah, well, there are, for sure. First of all, they're creating some really beautiful living spaces. And, if you don't need a lot of space, especially, you've got some that have wonderful views. You've got a really easy lifestyle. And a lot of people now, it doesn't matter what age you're at, a lot of people are sort of adopting a simplified life. And, being greener, better for the planet, all those things. So not accumulating so much junk. And in a condo, you're kind of forced to do that. So you pare down your living. Hopefully you're in an area where you can get outside and walk to the beach, to the parks. There's recreational facilities in a lot of them. You meet your neighbors. It's a good social atmosphere. Lance and I sold out a project in White Rock a few years ago, and it turned out just coincidentally, a lot of sort of elderly single ladies bought in there, and it's just become such a nice place for all of them to live because they've got a friendship thing going on. And,
all right.
So there's lots of good things. And earlier I mentioned, the people downsizing and traveling. I mean, that's just an awesome way. If you're away for 3 months of the year, you lock the door, you go. You don't have to worry about security issues and,
right.
People coming in and dealing with your yard and all that stuff. So lots of good reasons to buy.
Yeah, a lot of convenient things. Now, you're the expert. We've learned lots of great things. And as a realtor, you have the inside perspective. And any final thoughts, any advice you could give the listeners?
Well, one thing is that people are planning on downsizing, coming from a home, and they're going from a big house to a townhouse, as an example. They may want to consider looking at ones with a master on the main floor or a rancher style, which are harder to come by. But there's a lot of condo or townhouses, I should say, that are 3 stacks. So 3 floors, and that's an awful lot of stairs for people that are going into an older demographic. So
right.
It might be fine when you're in your 60s, but if you want this to be one of your last moves, consider the stairs, right?
Yeah.
So that's one thing. And really, on a more overall scope, just make sure you really check out your neighborhood and walk around the outside of the building. Look in terms of where you're positioned to the street, so noises. Just see if you can kind of get the inside scoop a little bit from your realtor about the history of the building and the nature of the people that live there, for sure.
All right. Well, Connie, that's great advice, and thank you for sharing your thoughts on this. Of course, dear listeners, if you can think of someone who might benefit from what we have covered here today, go ahead and share this with them. Maybe they want to go into a Strata property with you. Share the podcast with them. They'll thank you for it. And you can reach Connie and Lance Marples by telephone at 604-538-8888 and online at surreywhiterockhomes.com. Connie, thanks so much.
You too, Nick. Have a great day.
You've been listening to This Week in Real Estate with Lance and Connie Marples from Sutton West Coast Realty. This high-energy team brings their extensive real estate experience and keen eye for local market conditions to every transaction, ensuring their clients achieve their real estate goals, whether buying or selling. Call Lance and Connie Marples today at 604-538-8888. That's 604-538-8888. And visit them online at www.surreywhiterockhomes.com.
Local stories, local voices. We're localwebradio.fm.
This episode is a production of Jam Media. For information on hosting your own web radio show, visit jammedia.com. That's www.jambmedia.com.
The opinions expressed by our guest and host on localwebradio.fm do not necessarily reflect the views of Jam Media or its owners. No expressed or implied opinions of any product or service should be considered an endorsement or recommendation of any kind by Jam Media or its owners.